in early 80s, you'd be surprised there was no Lakeside. Nothing was there. There were a few trees, and that was where the locals used to gather. There were a lot of singing gentlemen with their sarangis, a few curio products that was there for tourists traveling there. But I don't think tourists ever bought anything there. Tourists were here to sell things. When we started, it was the fag end of the hippie era. A lot of affluent, rich tourists wanted to detox themselves materially and get toxified with something else. So that was the era then. But now, everybody, every third house, a young person is abroad. And their family knows what a foreign land is, what the world is all about. They easily can access information these days. And there is no teaching that goes into life anymore. Everybody is self-taught these days. So the growth, I don't know whether I'm very clear or not, but my life in terms of the Nepalese growth or the growth of Kathmandu, it was a roller coaster ride. We were already there, but suddenly we realized that we are not there yet. So we are at that juncture.
While you were mentioning about the tourists, you also mentioned that tourists were here to sell. What were they selling there? Because it is like something really new, like tourists coming to Nepal to sell for our generation especially.
Again, it might sound like a fairy tale. Most of the tourists, the Western tourists, used to drive down to Kathmandu, drive up to Kathmandu. And if you remember, there were a lot of Mercedes little buses around town.
Right.
Most of them, I think all of them, were brought in by tourists. They used to drive up to Kathmandu, taking months from Europe. And when they finished their trip, most of them ran out of money. So what they did was they dropped off their cars, their vehicles here. And those vehicles served as public transport for a long time. And it's just recently that we stopped rolling those antiques in the streets. So it's not just cars, but they had cooking stoves in the car. It was purely a camper. And they dropped off everything, Kathmandu had gas stoves before we had the cylinders, know. And there were celebrated musicians who came to Nepal unnoticed. And you'd be surprised that some of them even sold their studio tapes in Joche, where I think if you had preserved all those tapes, that would have churned out a lot of value these days, But we didn't realize that. Music came first to Nepal in South Asia. I'm sure about it. Very few people traveled elsewhere. So music, fashion, the global ways of life, it all happened in Kathmandu. It was a melting pot for the world. So I think that was what I meant, that tourists came here to sell things. And probably if they ran out of, their kharta, so they would just take out their watch and sell it. And those days, I think whoever possessed those watches, if they still have it, I think they can churn out a lot of
millions.